All right, so I work for the Minnesota Technology Association. If you've never heard of the Minnesota Technology Association or MnTech, I like to explain it this way. MnTech does the ACTs. We do advocacy to be able to have great policy for technologists and technology companies in Minnesota. Right now, we're working on computer science education policy. Where does Minnesota rank in terms of computer science policy in the United States? How many? Last. Okay, enough of you, yes. Hey, I got a new one for you, okay? So the new one is, if you include Puerto Rico, we get to be 51st. So Minnesota has the very fewest percentage of high school students offering any computer science classes in the whole country, and we feel that that needs to change. That's an example of the kind of advocacy we're doing. We also build community. We get groups together, we spend time together. We'll share a little bit more information about that, but we also develop talent. That's the T part, and that's what we're doing today. Today's Tech Careers 1.0 is really focused on technologists in the first 5 years of their career. Some of you are outside of that by just a couple days, like me, but we still want to include you as well. But Tech Careers 1.0 is a community put together by a steering committee of folks from lots of different companies who helped to put this together, but we're so glad that you're here. A couple of housekeeping pieces that I want to let you know about. One, we have an event sponsor, Thomson Reuters, today. Thomson is paying for Tech Careers events for the entire year this year, which is outstanding. We're really grateful to them for their sponsorship, so yeah. And as you noticed, we are at Target. And so we also have an event sponsor today, Target. And in just a second, I want to invite Greg up to be able to tell you about that. But we're so grateful for space like this. We're really glad to be able to bring you in and have you hear more about it. There's some amazing things happening from a technology perspective at Target. And to help tell you about that, I want to invite Greg Larson up here. Greg Larson is the Senior Vice President in Technology here and our Senior Director of Technology here at Target, and he can tell you a little bit more. Greg.
I was going to say, I don't know if you just promoted
I did.
Just I didn't know it,
yeah.
But thank you, Joel. Hi, my name is Greg Larson. Like Joel said, I lead a number of engineering teams in our digital org. We build experiences for our Target.com and mobile apps. I've been at Target over 20 years now. And excited to be here to introduce and kick this thing off. Target's a very proud sponsor of MnTech. I don't know how long we've been working together, but I know I've been a part of Target and MnTech since 2016 across a variety of things, whether it's going to events, helping organize events. Joel mentioned advocacy. I've gotten to work with Joel a lot on the CS for All Minnesota piece, and we had an exciting week when Governor Walz signed the new education bill into law, where we finally got some CS policy so that we can help grow and diversify our tech workforce. The pipeline that hopefully we'll have and create more people that will be sitting in the seats here today. Target's excited to be a part of this. Tech Careers 1.0, it's the importance of building networks in the local community, developing talent early in their careers is something that Target invests a lot in, and I personally have been involved in that as well. It's a passion of mine. The topic today is mentorship. Again, part of Target's learning career and our learning culture is a huge reason why I've stuck around Target for 20 years. Target invests a lot in helping people grow. You guys are in that spot right now and early in your career where you're really starting to take off. Mentorship is a huge piece that can help drive that. I thought I'd end with just a few examples of how mentorship has impacted me. Early in my career and even to this day, I very often would look around at my peers or maybe leaders that were a level or two above me and sought out people that I thought did something particularly well. Maybe they have a style of working that I like. Maybe they have a specific skill that I wanted. And I very intentionally created relationships with them so that I could learn from them and help grow into that. So that's one thing. And that kind of leads into a second thing of each one of you should be taking full control of your career. Like, don't wait around and let other people drive your career. And one big way of doing that is having intentionality around creating those mentorships that can drive what's next for you. I mentioned I've been at Target over 20 years. I've never had to interview for a job at Target. because I've had mentor relationships and other relationships across Target, so that when it was time for me to take my next move, I already knew where I wanted to go, or other people knew where I wanted to go, and I didn't have to go out and struggle to find that next spot. And lastly, even though many of you are early in your career and probably thinking about how do I get a mentor, you still could also give back and think about it from the other way around. Go find a high school kid or a middle school student that you can go mentor. So mentoring somebody else is also very rewarding and a great way to learn. So with that, I'll hand it back over. Thank you, everybody, for attending this event.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg. All right. It's also my honor to be able to introduce you to our speaker for today. Maria Vittone has lots of hats. Yoga instructor, program leader, career connector, and an amazing history of being able to make corporate connections for students in community college programs and being able to be a bridge for that. Maria has a ton of experience, including with the Be Bold, Break the Mold, Women Succeed in Non-Traditional Careers program. And we're excited for her to be able to introduce herself more, to be able to talk about the power of mentoring today. Please welcome with me, Maria Vittone. Yeah. Why don't you get started?
Okay. Hello, everybody. So excited to be here tonight. I'm especially excited because as I look out in this crowd, I have some very special people in this crowd. A few of them surprised me. I have two of my students there in Be Bold, Break the Mold. Marsa and Kayla came tonight, and they're sitting right up here in the front. I was telling a bunch of people that I'm actually dedicating this talk tonight to my Be Bold group because I asked them, okay, I might cry, but I asked them every day to be bold and be brave and not be perfect. So brave, not perfect, this is me up here right now. So it's dedicated to the group of students that I work with. So thank you, Target, for this beautiful space. Thank you, MinTech, for so much that you've done to me. Hi, Jade. Jade, okay, I'm seeing some other people here. So Jade came and talked to Be Bold, Break the Mold. She did a session for us. We have an empowerment session. She came and did a session for us called Flexing Your Networking Muscles. If you haven't heard that, you ought to book Jade for that one. It's a really good one. I also have two mentors that are here from the program, Cherie Limmer and Megan Tichler from SPS. And so I'm really honored that you've come. I'm actually thrilled that everybody is here. I came to MinTech when I was first putting together this program called Be Bold, Break the Mold. And I didn't know where to find anybody. I just knew that I had to do it. So I called Jade, actually, when she was in the role, and she set me up. So thank you for that. The last piece that I want to call out before I really start my talk is that I was looking at the roster of everybody who is coming today, and I noticed that there were a lot of students or interns on the list. And I don't want to embarrass you. I just want to call you out for, this is boss moves showing up here tonight, right? Really big boss moves. Would you stand up so we know who you are? Where are the students? Woo! That's amazing. Wait, stay standing for a minute. Stay standing for a minute, because I want everybody that's here to give them a little extra love tonight. I want you to make sure that you find these students afterwards when we have networking opportunities. This is really amazing that you're taking control of your careers so early on. So congratulations. I'm just thrilled that you're here. Thank you. All right, we're going to start out with a little exercise. We're going to talk to each other again. It's good practice for networking. And the exercise we're going to do a little demystifying mentoring, because it's really not that deep. So anybody who knows for sure that they've ever had a mentor, can you raise your hand? Okay, keep it up. I know you can do it. Anybody who thinks that, maybe somewhere around the road they've had a mentor before? maybe, but you're not quite sure if you had a mentor? Can you raise your hand? Okay. Raise your hand if somewhere someone helped you along the way and you're sitting here right now. Okay. All right. So what I'd like you to do now is part of my talk is that I want to expand the definition of mentoring. It doesn't have to be we're signing anything and it's in blood and we have to meet every week. And, you get an F if it doesn't work out. So I want to demystify mentoring a bit. And so the exercise we're going to do, you have 2 minutes. I'd like you to turn next to somebody, and I want you to talk about, when you raised your hand, and I want you to talk about that one person, that someone who helped you along the way, that's the reason you're here today, or talk about that maybe mentor, or that for sure mentor. And you each get a minute. And so I want you to say who that was, what they did for you, how they showed up for you, and how did that make you feel. Okay? 1 minute. Okay. So we're going to move on, but I promise we'll come back to it, and I promise we have tons of time after the event. That's another great topic that we can all talk to each other and continue these conversations. So I need to tell you about my mentoring moment. The first realization that I needed a mentor and what the power of a mentor could do for me. Because I, being in the helping profession that I am, I kind of have always been a mentor. So even in elementary school and middle school and high school, I did a lot of peer mentoring, and so I thought unlike Greg, I thought I had arrived, and that I didn't need a mentor. And it wasn't until I was in graduate school that I saw the power of mentorship and what it could do for you and for your career. I was in my last semester. I was doing an ed psych program at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. I wanted to be a counselor. I wanted to be a career counselor. Oh, look, I'm a career counselor. And I had an internship at the Milwaukee School of Engineering in the counseling department. You'd think nobody would come, right? Like engineers going to fix their personal problems. But we had an amazing director, and he was my supervisor for my internship. His name was Joe Malone. Awesome guy, like everybody was attracted to him. If you didn't have a personal problem, you were coming into the counseling office because you wanted to meet Joe Malone. Joe Malone was a spectacular person. And you just couldn't help but want to be around him. And Joe had another colleague, and there was another counselor that was working in the counseling center with him, and her name was Jane. And Joe and Jane, and Jane was spectacular. And Jane, there were a lot of things that reminded me of Joe with Jane. So I thought, she must have learned a lot from Joe. Like, that's pretty cool. And later on, I realized that Jane had been an intern with Joe 3 years before. And I went, oh, I get it. I get it. This is why I want a mentor. So ever since then, I have been collecting mentors. I haven't stopped. And I have mentors that I would call like the book of my life mentors. They're people who've stayed with me been with me for a very long time. I might not necessarily talk to them every month. I might not even talk to them every year. And then I have some mentors that have come and gone. I would call them chapter mentors. So it's been pivotal points in my life where I've needed some guidance and some support. And they've come and gone. And if I see them again, we'd be thrilled to see each other. So that's my mentoring moment. And I hope with that you can also be a collector of mentors as you're starting out your career. I want to tell you now, next, how do you solve a problem like Maria? I can't, oh, there, okay. Oh, I forgot to talk to, here's our agenda. I'm so sorry. I should have done this a long time ago. So we already started demystifying mentorship, but we're going to do that throughout the course of the rest of this time. We're going to put some definitions around terms, but I actually would like to expand our definitions instead of having a narrow definition of mentorship. And then I'm going to suggest that it's part of your career toolbox. I made an algorithm. I'll tell you a story about that in a minute, about how to find a mentor, and then we're going to finish up with another exercise. So here's a picture of the group that I've been working with for the last 3 years. Kayla and Marcia were there just a couple of weeks ago. This was our final celebration. I run a mentoring program. So from the person who didn't think they needed a mentor, now I'm running a mentoring program. The irony of that is pretty great. But I run a mentoring program for women or people who identify as non-binary, who are in jobs where they're one of few. So think about engineering, tech, criminal justice, and construction management. Those are the majors that fit into my group. And we run through a 9-month program starting in September, and we end in May. We don't sign in blood, but we do promise to see each other once a month. And on top of that, I provide some empowerment speakers. That's why Jade came in, and we talk about the ways that you can help your career, the ways that you can help yourself, and how it is that you proceed to move from student to career professional. So that is my group. And I got together with a few of them, Marcia included, the other day on Zoom. And Marcia and I are non-techie people, so she tried to help me make a video too, but it didn't work. So Marcia's not here like on the video, but she's here if you want to talk to her later. So I'm going to let you hear from the perspective of mentor and mentee what they gain from being in their positions, all right? And then we're going to talk a little bit about how that has maybe expanded their networks and their careers.
Hello, my name is Rose Dillon. I'm an IT developer at Hennepin County, and I've been in the industry for a couple of years now. I am also a community faculty at Metro State, where I teach Intro to Computer Science. I've been mentoring with Be Bold, Break the Mold for the past 3 years, where I've supported people in non-traditional career pathways to find their niche within the IT industry. Early on in my career, I have benefited from being mentored and to really strategize as far as my career plans and where I could take my career. And through that experience, I have decided to pay it forward and give back to really support others who are coming into the industry and early on in their career. I've come back multiple years to Be Bold to mentor because of several different reasons. I mentor because I had received mentoring, which helped me to grow my career and strategize as to where I wanted to figure out where I wanted to go in my career. But it also helps me, as part of mentoring, it also helped me really help create the future pipeline of IT professionals. It allows me to be able to give back to my community and really help others to achieve their goals. Mentoring has helped me immensely really improve my skills to really do an inventory of my technical skills to be able to help somebody upskill or develop their skills and their knowledge, and to be able to explain and exchange information, technical or non-technical, in different ways. It has also helped me to really build strong relationships, both with my mentees and people within the industry, by extending my network to people who are early on in their careers. I will say that the experience has been really rewarding. At first, I thought it would take up a lot of my time. However, the way the program is set up, there's goals that are set in the beginning of the program, and I think that is really strategic. And Maria has done an excellent job to make sure that working with a mentee doesn't become burdensome for both sides, so that the goal is set at the beginning, and then you can meet as frequently as you want, or as little as you want. And that way, both mentor and mentee can engage the relationship in a way that's meaningful and that's respectful and really that's really collaborative. So like I said, I continue to mentor because not only do I feel like when I help somebody, I accomplish something as well, it increases the opportunities that others can be exposed to, and to also really help support and guide, I guess, students and people who are early on in this journey to navigate and find success in different ways, and to really be able to bounce ideas off of me to see what my thoughts are. And if I can't find the right information they're looking for, I can always expose them to people in my network to see if they can connect with someone who has that information. Mentoring for me, I see it as an overall community, society benefits from it, because not only do we help build the pipeline, but we also help others succeed. And hopefully with that success, we have built a stronger local workforce in IT, but also we've given people careers that they can stay around for a long time and enjoy that career, and also then put back in and help others as well as they grow their career. So overall, mentoring for me has been really successful. I've really enjoyed it and will continue to do it. And I would like for you to take it, Maria's on her
Hello,
offer if she's
my name
asking
is
you
Katerina.
to mentor.
You know what? I wanted to stop that video and start the next one. So let's see if I can make that.
Hello, my name is Katerina. I'm a software developer. I want to share with you what role mentorship played in my life. A couple years ago, I met Maria. I had a lot of self-doubts at the time. I was at-home mom with 3 kids, no time to develop career. I had master's degree in computer science from foreign university, but never figured.
You know what? I don't hear that very well. Are you all hearing that? Okay, I'm going to tell Katerina's story. So Katerina came from the Ukraine. Katerina came from the Ukraine. She has a master's degree in computer science. She could never really figure it out when she moved here. She had a language barrier because she didn't speak English. And she really couldn't figure out how to use her degree or how to get into this field at all. Long story short, she joined Be Bold, Break the Mold, decided she needed another degree because it wasn't working for her. She doesn't really need another degree. And she joined Be Bold, Break the Mold, has had 2 mentors. She's been in the program twice. She started out as a tutor then in our computer science department, and eventually she applied for 2 jobs in tech. She's a software developer now. She got the 2 jobs before she graduated. She just took one of the jobs. And she, then this next year that she came back to Be Bold, she had a different mentor who I chose for her because Katerina's got a lot going on in her life. She's in school, she's got 4 kids. She calls her husband her 4th kid. And then she's got a full-time job. And so I carefully chose another mentor for her to make sure that she could talk about her career-life balance and how she was gonna make all of that work. So that's Katerina. So that's Katerina and Rose. Who wants Rose for a mentor? Like, oh my God, right? Rose is the best. I think the irony of what Rose said is that she was worried. This is like Cherie up here too. I was worried it was gonna take too much time. Well, she's like a mother hen because she now has been in the program for 3 years. She's had at least 2 mentors each year, and she just kind of like gathers all her chicks around her and she doesn't let her go. So I think she's mentoring between 9 and 12 people at the moment. And I just think it's so funny. She was worried about how much time it was going to take. But here's what I want to talk about in terms of possibilities of mentorship. So this is what Rose didn't say, is that, yeah, she's having a great time and it helps her professionally. But Rose and I have started collaborating a little bit more. I realized that our students in the tech careers were going into interviews that was called the technical interview, and they were unprepared. And I did not know that until a student told me that. And I thought, well, we've got to do something about that. That's wrong. You cannot leave this college and not know how to do a technical interview. And I knew that Rose had that knowledge. And so I said, Rose, I want you to come in, and we're going to do a little bit more work together. We're going to do a series on acing the technical interview. So Rose has spent a lot of time with our group. We've had a wonderful time together. So she's built a little bit of a side business now. She's got a little extra money in her pocket, right? And Katerina, let me tell you about the possibilities that she didn't talk about, the possibilities that mentorship has brought her. So she's been working for a year now at Meditech as a software developer. She is one of the leaders of their women's ERG, Employee Research Group at Meditech. She is also teaching LinkedIn to her colleagues at Meditech. She's teaching LinkedIn because she loved the LinkedIn session that we had in Be Bold. And she told me, Maria, you cannot go to that MinTech event and not fix your LinkedIn page. She told me she was so embarrassed. So anyway, I fixed it, and I let her know I fixed it before I came here. So she's teaching LinkedIn, and she's coming back next year as a mentor for Be Bold, Break the Mold. So I don't ever want you to think as new career people that you're bothering anybody. Or I think the most important thing is that it's creating possibilities. This human connection is really creating possibilities for absolutely everybody involved. In fact, the mentors love to be mentors. If somebody says to you, Joel, I love what you do, like, I think you're the best at what you do. I want to be just like you. Do you think Joel's going to turn me down if I say, will you come have a cup of coffee with me? No, right? You can turn me down? No, right? So nobody's going to turn you down. If you flatter them and you admire what they do, I can promise you've got a friend forever. All right, let's see if I can move on. Oh, so I'm already on my next slide. So I was putting a little definition around this. I really like what Jeff Siebel had to say. And I'm going to encourage you at some point to go to the Forbes article of Mice and Mentors. It's a great article to read for both mentors and mentees. Mentors are the people who believe in you unconditionally, who make small gestures or little leaps of faith that in retrospect become transformational turning points in your life. And Jeff always credits his teachers and his mentors in everything that he does. So let's throw out a few. Okay, so we got the term mentor, but what's another synonym of mentor? Anybody, just throw it out. Throw a few things out. What else could be a mentor? Teacher, coach, guide, advisor, inspirer. Love it. Friend, totally. Motivator. Yeah, I don't know, my ears aren't working so good. What else did I miss? Decent supervisor could be a mentor. Okay, that's a good one, Kayla. What did you say? Sensei, absolutely. Guru, right? Absolutely. There's a long history of mentorship in a lot of our religious and cultural practices. But that's a topic for another conversation. All right. Okay, there's one term, so you can look at this slide later at some point, but Greg said it without saying it. I want you to understand the word sponsorship. We can overlap. We can do coach, we can do mentor, we can do sponsor. But I want you to understand the word sponsorship because that happened to Greg as he was moving into through his career at Target. So sponsorship is something that you're going to hear about. I want you to look for these sponsorship opportunities. A sponsor is somebody who knows your work, values your work, has a position of power and an influence in an organization, and they're going to use that position of power and influence to get your work in the door, and so you're sitting at the table. Eventually, they're going to bring you in as a colleague, right? Okay, So let me give you an example in my own personal life of coach, mentor, and sponsor. So when I started Be Bold, Break the Mold, I was a part-time contractor. Oh, still am. And I was working at these 2 colleges, and I didn't know how either one of them worked. In fact, they all worked a little bit differently. Thank you. I only have 10 minutes. Crud. You know what? I've got a really great exercise at the end, so I might skip forward. I just want you to know, if you want to hear the story, I'll tell you about my coach and my mentor and my sponsorship, but it's happened to me a number of times. So keep an eye out for sponsorship. I'm going to let you read this one on your own as well. Because if mentorship and is an essential function of an organization, I want you to make that an essential function. It's got to be part of your toolbox. It's got to be like networking, showing up at events like this, like learning how to write a resume, like understanding how to use LinkedIn, interviewing. I think it's really important that you make that a part of your toolbox. So, in fact, mentoring these stats that I have in here, this came from LinkedIn, but it also came from the National Institute of Health. So the NIH believes that mentoring is a really healthy thing for us to do. So there's kind of this portion that's like you're helping your career, but you're also helping your social and emotional health if we're in these relationships. Oh, and the best part of mentoring is that it creates this belonging and inclusion that I think makes us all feel like this is when you love your job, right? When you feel like you're included, when you belong, when you know that people care about you and care about your success. Am I moving fast enough? So we had, when I was meeting with Jade and Marcia and Katerina the other day, I got to admit to you, I didn't know what an algorithm was until 2 months ago. Okay, and that might be silly, and you might think I'm stupid, but I'm telling you this because I'm modeling a behavior that I want you to also pick up, and that is, if you don't know something, you ask. I can't believe I waited this long to ask what an algorithm was, and guess what? They're cool. Like, they're fun. We were making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and we were doing all kinds of fun algorithms that we were putting together. It was really exciting, and I thought, I can't believe I've waited this long to figure out what an algorithm is. So I said, when I was coming to this talk, I said to my group, I was like, I'm going to set it up so that it's an algorithm, how you find your mentor, and then they're going to think I'm like the best speaker ever because I'm speaking their language, right? But I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. Another slide that you can look at later. We are going to talk about, though, finding your perfect mentor, and I hope you already have some ideas. But here's what I'm going to suggest to you. If you've never had a mentor or you've never been a mentee, I suggest that you find an already organized mentoring program like Be Bold, Break the Mold. But there's loads of them. Because I work in gender equity, I happen to know a ton of gender equity programs for women, mentoring programs for women. But I promise you that I can help you find one. If you leave here and you feel like you don't know where to go, then I haven't done my job. So you need to either contact me or come talk to me about that. Katerina, coming from the Ukraine, didn't understand what mentoring, never heard the word before. I can't believe she joined the program because she said, literally, it's not part of our culture. If you have a problem, there's something wrong with you. So when she came here and she realized this is acceptable, it was a game changer for her. So there's a couple of different established programs. It is not an exhaustive list. Sometimes I think it's really cool if you've got a few different intersecting identities. This is where you can find some of those mentorship pieces. If you've already been a mentor or think you've been mentored, it's more about cultivating your relationships, right? So it's about attending professional events like this. It's about seeing the same people on a regular basis and establishing relationships with them. And finally reaching out and say, Joel, your work is so great, or Ishmael, I love what you do for MinTech, or Cherie, how did you go from user experience to data? Wow, I didn't know that about you. Will you meet with me? That is so cool. That might be something I want to do someday too. Of course, you can seek recommendations from your colleagues, from your neighbors, from somebody sitting on an airplane. That's all networking. And then the important part is that you continue to have interest in this person. You reach out, you make a connection, you follow up, you find out that, that Julie's got 6 dogs, and you found this really great article about a 6-dog mom, so you send it to her, right? So it's really just about continuing to keep that relationship going. And again, there's nothing that has to be signed. Just make your book of mentors. Start your book of mentors today. All right, this also I'm not gonna go over, but I found some really great articles on Inc. about how to be a super mentor and a super mentee. So hopefully you can get this, take a look at those at some point. All right, here's the final exercise, because I have 5 minutes left and it's gonna take 5 minutes. This might feel counterintuitive. We're gonna find the future you. So I've been telling you, you need to find a mentor, but now I want you to find your inner mentor. So here's the thing, there's a lot of noise in our society, right? Like you grow up and your parents tell you to do stuff and your educational system tells you to do stuff, and then you get to your company and your company's got culture and you gotta do it this way. But what I really want you to do now is center yourself. This is how you get your goals. We want you to have your goals, and the more you know about yourself, the better apt you are to have a great mentoring relationship. Because like Joel said when he first met me, he said, somebody said, how can I help you? And he's like, I have to make a decision? So it's really important that you learn your goals. And it's just gonna make you a better mentee, and eventually it's gonna make you a better mentor too. Okay, so everybody, sit comfortably. We're gonna do a little visualization, an actualization. If you really don't like this stuff, just close your eyes and take a 5-minute power nap. I'm totally fine with that. Just pretend you're doing this. So let's sit comfortably in your comfortable chairs there, real cushy. And I want you to focus on your breathing. Take a couple deep breaths in and out through your nose. Fill up your lungs. Fill up your belly. I want you to know that you're in a safe place. You're relaxed. You're calm. And imagine yourself leaving your body, floating above yourself. Observe yourself and your life as it is today. Now I want you to float forwards, 5, 10, 15 years, whatever feels comfortable to you. You have succeeded in everything that you have wanted. So let's go visit future you. Observe where future you lives. How do you feel as you walk around? Observe future you. What does she look like? How is he dressed? How is their demeanor now that they have succeeded in everything that you've ever dreamt of doing? And how does future you greet you? Future you offers you a drink and something to eat. What is it? Where do you sit? And you have a conversation with future you. What advice does she give you? What does he want you to do? What do they want you to remember, to focus on? What's important to future you? Also, look around. Who is there to support future you? What does future you say about the help that they've received along the way? And when you finish your conversation, thank future you and head out of your future house. You're safe, you're relaxed, you're calm. Float up and look down on that life that future you has. That's your life if you want it. Now safely and relaxed and calmly float back to your current life. Bring your focus back to your breathing. And when you're ready, make notes about your conversation with future you. What did he tell you? What did you observe about her? How do you feel? How did you feel when you met them? And what are your priorities now? Keep future you in mind as you go about your daily life and you make decisions. And if you're feeling stressed or worried about anything, chat to future you. Lean on them for advice. You can open your eyes. This might be a fun one to talk about when we're done with the panel, if you're feeling comfortable sharing it. My last two things to you, here's Marcia and LaTanya, her mentor. Greg said this too. I want you to pay it forward, and it's not too soon to pay it forward. There are people behind you that are really in need of some advice. The relationship that I saw this year with Marcia and LaTanya, they went from 0 to sponsorship. Ask Marcia about it later. It was really incredible. And then the last bit here, my last quote is, "Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much." Thank you for being a good audience.
Amazing. Thank you, Maria. Thank you so much for sharing those things. I'm excited to talk about future me. It was a great visualization for me to be in that moment. I want to invite our panelists to come forward. One thing that we want to involve with Tech Careers 1.0, come on up, that we want to involve with Tech Careers 1.0 is, how do you actually do it? It's one thing to hear somebody talk about doing it. It's another thing to be able to actually hear about people who are in the midst of doing it right now. And so we've curated a panel for you to be able to hear a little bit more about that. So come on up. I guess I'll sit in the middle, right here. And we have some amazing folks. You can see their names up on the board. And you are going to have a chance to be able to ask them some questions in just a minute as well. But welcome. Thank you for being here. So I'm going to introduce people briefly and then give them a chance to be able to introduce themselves. Alicia is a senior software engineer here at Target. So Alicia, can you tell people a little bit more about yourself and what you do here at Target?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, I'm a senior software engineer here at Target. And I actually began my career in a non-traditional sense. So I'm actually a career switcher. And I know a lot of people here are potentially career switchers as well, navigating your career. So hopefully I can give some advice about that kind of thing. I've been with Target for about 2.5 years now. So really fast career progression for me, actually, someone who just started to ask themselves if they want to switch careers in 2020 to being a senior software engineer 2023. And I couldn't have done that if I didn't have mentors, coaches, sponsors. I'm really happy that that was discussed because that one is especially a big proponent for me. So yeah, happy to be here and thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Alicia. Anusha, welcome to our panel. You work here at Target as a software engineer. Tell folks a little bit more about how you got to Target and what you do here.
Yeah, so hello everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome. So my name is Anusha, and I'm a software engineer here at Target. I started off also non-traditional, just like Alicia. I was part of the Hack Bright Bootcamp, which was sponsored by Target. So that's kind of how I made my path here. I'm also very passionate about mentorship. Couldn't have gotten here this far without mentorship. Alicia was actually my mentor during boot camp and truly, truly helped me to get where I am today. And yeah, so Is there anything else I
Oh,
can
you
add?
nailed it.
Okay,
Awesome.
awesome.
And I'll turn to my right over here. We also have a duo from CHS. So Todd, I'll start with you. Todd is a VP of IT. I didn't even promote him this time. So just a VP at CHS. Todd, tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you came to Mentor.
Sure. For me, I've been doing this a long time. You can tell I've been around a while. I started as a help desk guy in 1996 at a company in St. Louis, and just have had a great career in information technology. And across that career, made lots of mistakes and picked myself up and dusted myself off. But also, I had some great mentors along the way that kept me from making some mistakes, and I learned a lot. And so, my role at CHS, I run our ERP systems, our company-wide transformation, program management, project management, architecture data, just a bunch of stuff. But I also do a lot of mentoring. Nick's just one of the folks, and I think as you get to this point in your career that I'm at, you have a lot to share and not a lot of runway left. And so now's kind of the time to do that. And so I'm really excited to be here and share some thoughts.
Great. Thanks, Todd. Nick, you're a project management specialist at CHS. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do on a daily basis, and how you got to CHS.
Yes, my name is Nick Ritchie. I've been with CHS now for 4 years. Right now I do project management, so it's kind of helping run projects day to day. And then, like Todd said, we've been mentoring for a few years now, and there's mistakes that he was talking about. I get to learn from those without me making them myself. So, yeah, it's been a good few years with Todd, and he's taught me a lot and helped me off the ledge a few times. But yeah, it's been good, and thanks for having me.
Awesome. Great. Okay, I'm going to start with our two mentees. And again, as Maria said, it's never as simple as are you a mentee or mentor? Hopefully for the rest of your life, the answer will be both. But for our pairs today, we have two mentees and their mentors on the stage. And so I want to start with folks who are the mentees in that situation. So Anusha, I'll start with you. How did you know it was time for a mentor? You told us a little bit about your program involvement, so maybe you were voluntold to find a mentor, and that's okay too. How did you know it was time to get a mentor, and then what did you do about it?
Yeah, so I was part of Hackbright, which for me, it was kind of unique because they actually paired you with two mentors, which is how I met Alicia. But I guess something that I can address is like, how was I motivated to like continue that relationship per se? I guess I really enjoy, Alicia made it so easy. She made sure that this was like a very safe space for me, and I really was encouraged to like kind of take control of my learning, and I really wanted to grow in my career and really be a software engineer. I came from a non-technical background. I was formerly pre-med, and I wanted to pivot careers really, really bad, and it was important to me to kind of take ownership of my career, and mentorship was a great way for me to learn kind of everything, like learn what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, what I can improve on, and that's how I got through that, and that's how I felt like mentorship was something that was meant for me. I really needed to pursue that, so.
Got it. So for Anusha, it was a program. Nick, what about you? How did you know it was time for a mentor, and then how did you go about finding one?
So actually, I believe me and Todd kind of met naturally. It was at the end of my internship. We had a presentation. There was a lunch with all the big IT people there, and I just kind of sat next to him, and we just kind of started talking, and then we just started meeting monthly. So I didn't really seek him out. It was just we just kind of grew a relationship from shared interests that we've had, and we've been meeting ever since once a month. And like I said before, I've learned a lot and learned from his mistakes, and he's helped me not make a few myself. So it's been good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Maria mentioned a couple ways to be able to find a mentor, but I'm just curious, it's interesting if you've gone to a job interview and you sit on the side of the person being hired, it is super nerve-wracking, and you make all kinds of assumptions about the person sitting on the other side of the table. But then when you sit on the other side of the table, you get a totally different view of how you came to that part of the situation. And I'm just curious, Alicia, tell us a little bit about, like, Anusha was voluntold as part of this program, like, hey, you should have a mentor. She's done the work to be able to continue it. How did you get here? How did you decide, I'm going to mentor? How did you decide that you were going to take this opportunity?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, a lot of it was paying it forward, but also wanting to be that person that I felt like I lacked. So how I began my journey of being self-taught was flailing about, pretty much. I had no idea what I was doing majority of the time. I had to figure it out on my own. I didn't know what resources were available to me. That wasn't a fun time. And I managed to get through most of it. Being self-taught, I was maybe 80% to the way full stack, right? And I still didn't really have a mentor, but just remembering that struggle of getting there on my own, I was like, I don't want anyone to ever go through that. If I can provide the resources, the shortcuts, the tips, the guide for someone else, I'm gonna be that person. So a lot of it was also just wanting to pay it forward and reduce that headache and pain, that strain on others. And then as well as just coming into Target, they have such a heavy learning-centric culture that it's almost impossible to ignore how mentorship plays within the company. And so naturally, everyone just kind of wants to lean towards having that relationship. Either you are the mentee or you are mentoring. That was also why that it was just so important for me. And also, it's not something that always happens formally. Sometimes you're just connecting with others and they confide in you about certain things, and then boom, you're like a mentor. It really just happens that way sometimes. And that's also some things that just happen with me, is that I just practice a lot of empathetic listening. I let people have a lot of space when they talk to me, and then they realize that I'm very helpful for them, and then that also just forms. So that's how I find myself in a mentorship role sometimes.
That's great, and I'm glad that you even started talking about the mechanics of how it came about. And Todd, I was actually going to spin that back to you and ask, so Nick said that you just met in an informal setting and that it became a mentorship relationship. Tell us your side of that story. Because you probably were already mentoring other people. How did you know this was turning into a mentoring relationship? What was your part in being able to make that happen?
Yeah, it's a great question. Probably, pretty much how Nick described, maybe a few more steps that happened behind the scenes. But, before becoming a help desk guy, I was in the Army. And so I have that background, and Nick's in the Army. He's not active duty, but he's in the National Guard.
Air Force.
And, Air Force, whatever. That's right. He's in the Air Force.
Important correction.
Yeah, that's true. And so, I guess when you were an intern, you were in Sarah's organization.
I was, yeah.
And I remember you were the only person that, was in the National Guard. And, I said, hey, that's great, Sarah. I love it when we're bringing, military into the organization. And then she approached me and said, hey, would you be willing to mentor Nick? And I was like, great, love it. And so there were a few steps behind the scenes, but then you kind of got told you were mentoring with me, I think. And that kind of worked out, but it's been a lot of fun since.
And I appreciate that you point out that having some level of common connection, and that common connection can be past experience similarities, or it can be, like Maria mentioned, something that you see in that person that you want to become, that becomes that shared thing. You're trying to learn, what's this organizational system you use? And maybe that's a short-term relationship, or maybe it's how have you grown in your career? And maybe that's a more medium-length internship or mentorship. But I'm just curious for Alicia and Anusha, when you think about how you set parameters, trust, structure in your relationship, because I think that's something that gets missed sometimes. Mentoring sometimes is a flash in the pan because one person has one expectation of what's supposed to be happening, and the other person is hoping or thinking it's going to be something else. So tell us a little bit about how you develop trust, how you set structure, what that looked like early on in your mentoring.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like this question just because I think a lot of this, the onus is actually on the mentor to develop this part of the relationship. So while it is on the mentee to kind of drive what they want out of a mentorship, that doesn't mean the mentor can't play a part in helping their mentee feel empowered to do that. And so what I did with Anusha is that I was just very explicit. I would just told her straight up, this is a safe space. I want this to be psychologically safe for you. I want you to be able to confide with me in things. for me to understand how I can help you, I have to truly understand what you're going through and like the full picture of it all. So I was just really explicit about it. And she realized that she could take up all the space because of that. I gave her the entire room to use. I wasn't like, hey, like, take a step here, can you step there, right? I just told her this is all yours, okay? And that already alleviates so much for the mentee, because they're already so new to everything, they're trying to navigate this, and on top of trying to figure out like how their mentor is like, that is just another thing on top of all of it. So as a mentor, I was like, I'm gonna take that away from you. You don't have to try to figure that out. I'm gonna tell you right now that I am here for you. You can tell me these things, and I will let you guide how this is gonna go. I'm with you 100%. And so that is how I build a network of trust with Anusha. And when she kind of realized that, like, wow, like I have a lot of control here, it just became natural and easy for her to want that. You know, it didn't feel like she was stepping on my toes or asking too much from me. She was just very comfortable with that because I've made it very explicit. So that was kind of my secret to establishing trust.
And Anusha, what was that like for you? Was that what you expected? When you heard that, what did that mean to you? And then how did you take the ownership to be able to drive the relationship?
Yeah, so like Alicia said, when I was in a boot camp, I was pretty scared, you know. I knew nothing about software engineering, nothing about tech, really. I mean, I kind of self-studied a little bit. And I was just sitting there like, my gosh, this target engineer is going to work with me. I was like researching, okay, how do I act in a mentorship relationship? Like, how professional do I have to be? And I remember even the first day, I was like, okay, I need to dress well for this. And I remember like, you know, getting all like dressed up kind of actually, and like hopping on the Zoom call with Alicia. And yeah, the first thing she said to me was like, hello, I'm Alicia. I just want you to know that this is a safe space. And I cannot explain to you how much that eased my nerves. I went from being like this like scared little like thing to really being like, okay, this is great. Like Alicia's here to help me. I can be open and transparent with her. I can tell her like what I'm struggling with, what I want to improve on, and it seriously helped me get into that headspace. Like this is for me to kind of grow my career. You know, this is me to like leverage and use and take control and really learn and make the best of it. I mean, so yeah.
I love that. Nick, Todd, tell us a little bit about how structure developed in your mentoring relationship and the importance of like setting parameters and expectations was for you.
Yeah, I think Nick was probably a little bit of deer in the headlights at the beginning, and I never gave a safe space discussion.
We're all learning.
We're all learning. I'm learning. But you know what I think is important is you know, as a mentor, you know, to show some vulnerability, right? And so a lot of times, you know, when Nick brings something up he's struggling with, I'll give an example of in my career where I failed miserably doing that thing, right? And, you know, it's kind of uncomfortable, I'm sure. I don't know, Nick. I mean, it was for me when I was having mentors like to say, hey, I'm not perfect, right? I'm still, you know, because you want to show up to this person above you in the organization like, hey, I'm great and I'm doing everything wonderful, but that's not the purpose, right? The purpose is to learn. And when you learn that these people who, you know, are maybe, you know, doing some things that you'd like to be doing someday, you learn that they're human, they make mistakes, they have mentors, right? Like they're not coming to you to ask for advice, but they are going to other people. And so I think, you know, anytime you bring me something, it's like, oh yeah, you know, here's what I did and here's how it failed miserably. And then I think that opens it up for Nick to be, okay, well, here's, you know, it's more comfortable, right? It's not a job interview, it's a mentoring relationship.
Nick, what did Todd do to be able to help create parameters, or what did you do yourself to be able to create a structure that was ultimately successful?
In the beginning, I'd always come with like a list of questions. There'd be like probably 10 of them on there. I just raffle them off, and you know, like Todd was just saying, he'd read each question. He'd be like, all right, well, I had this experience. This is what I did. And this was what happened. Here's what I would do differently. So it kind of started off with that, and then as time goes on, you know, still questions that I ask, and sometimes we just kind of talk, ask about what's going on in each other's lives, like that. But yeah, I think just definitely finding questions that you're having throughout the month where I'm struggling with, and then ask his experience on how he handled it and what he would do differently if he was in that situation again. So.
And it's funny because, I mean, you laugh at it now, having that list of 10 questions, but it's not a bad place to start. I mean, it's like being a substitute teacher, the worst thing is not enough lesson plans. You want to have more than you ever would need. And so, like, as funny as it is now, and now that you know Todd a little bit better, you don't have to have all 10 questions prepared, but it was great to be able to have it. Alicia and Anusha, I want to find out a little bit about some pro tips. So we're Google searching right now how to be the world's best mentor, and wondering, Alicia, what you can tell us, like what would be on your tip board for being the world's greatest mentor?
Ooh, what a question. I guess for me, it's anticipating as much as you can as a mentor and really trying to understand what it's like to be in your mentee's shoes. Because in this relationship, the mentor is someone who kind of, they do the giving and the mentee takes, they're the takers, right? So, ask yourself, how comfortable are you just asking for what you need from people? It's hard, societally, it's not what is ingrained in us to ask people, I need this from you, I need this from you. And that's why I was so keen on establishing an interpersonal relationship, because I think about myself, who are people in my life that I am super comfortable asking things from? Significant others, parents, friends, those are people I'm very comfortable with that with. And I want my mentee to feel that way with me. And so I want to establish that first, and then they will realize, this isn't something I have to tell them necessarily. They kind of fall into place when I do this. So I'm not okay, you need to start controlling more of what you want on the agenda. You need to start coming prepared. I don't do that. I just make sure that they are so comfortable simply just taking what they need out of this relationship. The cookie jar is all theirs. Their hand can go all up in it. It's all good. And I would say I think for me, that is it. Just anticipating everything that my mentee could possibly want from me and being very sensitive to that.
Todd, I'm going to bounce over to you. You're writing a blog post about the world's best mentor. What is on your short list of things that you would tell every mentor they need to do?
I think keep it personal and relevant. I mean, I don't know that there's, kind of this perfect set of rules. That there is one thing that our speaker, I think, brought up that I think is absolutely critical that I would share with everybody in the room and just reinforce, which is, ask. This idea of asking for help, it seems like kind of a sign of weakness, but it's exactly opposite. I mean, I look at people that ask for help as it's a sign of professional maturity. I'd much rather have somebody ask for help and do a good job than not ask for help and struggle. And I can tell you, anybody that would come to me in the way she described and say, hey, Todd, would you help me with this? There's a 0% chance I'm saying no. And it doesn't seem like that when you look at people in the organization. And I'm sure those people exist. I'm sure there are people out there that would say no, but I am going to say they're probably very few and far in between. And so don't hesitate to ask. I mean, likely they're going to say yes, and if they don't, they're probably going to have to give you some reason why, and even then you're going to walk away from that conversation with more than you had before. And it's not hard to do. It really isn't. It's scary. I grant you that. It's scary to walk up to somebody you don't have a relationship and open that conversation. But I think you'll have a lot of success with it if you try it. I think it was really spot on advice.
I'm going to pivot that question a little bit and give it back to Nick first and then Anusha. Okay, we're going to go do it. Everybody in this room is walking out today and they're going to up their mentor game. What are some concrete tips you would give them about, here are a couple things that you just need to do to be able to be successful in that relationship?
As a mentor?
As a mentee.
Mentee, okay.
Yeah.
I would say, like I said before, I have a list of questions. I Googled questions, what to ask a mentor. So, okay. Which definitely helped and opened that conversation. But I think just be open and like Todd said, he was vulnerable in his experiences. Be vulnerable in your experiences, right? Have that open dialogue and be ready to take that constructive criticism and that. That's exactly what it is. It's constructive. They're there to help you. Don't take it the wrong way, and just be willing and open for it.
Awesome. Nusha, what do you think? If you're giving people feedback about top couple things they need to do as a mentee to be successful, what would you encourage them to do?
Honestly, I would say, think about it for a second. But I would say you're really in control. I know I've emphasized this. I know our speakers emphasize this. Like, as a mentee, it's important to know what you want to get out of the relationship. So I knew hey, I have these technical skills that I wanted to work on, but I also wanted to work on how do I act in a corporate setting? What do I do? And I kind of had a plan for how I wanted to approach the mentorship to some degree. I would always come in with specific questions that I had for Alicia, which I hope made her job a little bit easier too. And yeah, it was really important to me, and in speaking of the constructive criticism too, to really understand hey, your mentor is there to help you, and this is a relationship that is supposed to benefit you, and if it doesn't, you can always pivot, You can always be honest with your mentor. I believe in transparency, really. If something's not going the way you want it to go, really bring it up and don't be afraid to share that with your mentor. And honestly, if your mentor is not working out, that's okay too. You can find maybe a different mentor that will align with how you are and what your goals are. So I think kind of taking it in terms of how you want and what you want to do is really important.
I love that. We're going to come and get your questions in just a second. So start thinking about what you would like to be able to ask this excellent panel. But I'm going to do a couple of speed questions here. If a mentor-mentee conversation goes well, what percent of the conversation should be the mentee talking, and what percent of the conversation should be the mentor talking? There's no right answer to this, but just wondering what you think the right mix is. Anybody?
I think it's different each time. Sometimes I ask a question to Todd, and he goes on for a half hour.
That is true.
But sometimes it's more me doing the talking. So I think it's different based on the conversation that you're having, and there's really there's no wrong answer to that. It could be different every single time, and ours has been.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny. I feel like I'm a talker, actually. So every time I meet with Alicia, I am talking and talking and talking. And sometimes, I have to realize, okay, Alicia says stuff, and I'm listening, and I prioritize listening. But I do try to, I feel like I talk a little bit more, but trying to find a good balance.
That's awesome. And I would say as a mentee, it's important that you drive the relationship. And I'm going to come back and ask, what does that mean in just a second? But as a mentor, you are there to coach and support. And so I would say that the flexibility piece is primarily on you to either fill the space. I love how you were sharing it, Alicia, is I'm creating the space. I'll know if I need to kind of step into it to be able to fill it, but I want to offer it to her to be able to give. And Todd, I know, as much as Nick is joking, I'm sure that that's the case too, is when you are the one talking, it's because he's asked something specific and you have specific feedback to be able to give.
Yeah, I think there are times where Nick asks me a question. Yeah, there's a 30-minute story to answer the question. There are some times where I ask Nick a question, and I'll use an example. Nick didn't start as a project manager. He was in our productivity area, and I kind of asked him, "What do you want to do?" And he brought up project management, and then I peppered him with about 50 questions, right, about why and why would you want to do that, and then it was kind of a back and forth, and but I could tell he was really serious about it, and so that turned into him getting some certifications and things, and then creating an opportunity for him in the organization that started as a trial thing, and now he's a project manager, right? But that was not a 30-minute story for me. It was, well, I'm going to ask you some questions to see, if this is really right for you, and it worked out really good. So I think it really depends on the situation, is what it comes down to.
I'm going to read between the lines on what you just said, which is, you said he left and got some certifications. Nick, where did you come up with which certifications to get?
Well, I started my master's in project management, so I'm almost done with that now. And I think that also just shows that I'm serious about it and not going to, waste any time for anyone if he's offering to give me a trial run somewhere. And, so.
Yeah. And part of what I heard is an offer from Todd to say, this is like pre-sponsorship. Here's some advice I'm giving you. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. If you're serious about doing it, why wouldn't I advocate for you to be able to continue to do it and continue to grow? And that's maybe one other pro tip I would say as a mentee. Something I found super helpful is if my mentor gives me good advice in my first session, I want to implement it as quickly as possible and then go back and tell them about it because I want more of that. If they give you really bad advice or something was not helpful, don't tell them that was helpful. Like, don't do that because they're going to keep giving you a steady stream of that. But like, if they were able to say, like, when Todd did the question, sometimes as a mentee, you can go back the next time and you can be like, hey, I got a similar frame. I've got something I want you to ask me 50 questions about, and get them primed to do that same thing that was really helpful for you. It's a way to be a good consumer. All right, we got a question. We got questions from the audience. Keegan, do you have the microphone, or Ishmael does? Both of you do? Amazing. You do questions from both sides at the same time. So if you have a question, just raise your hand. Would love for you to be able to ask this panel up here some questions. We've got one right up here. Thank you for being so brave and jumping out right away to be able to ask a question. If you'd be willing to just give your name and then ask your question, that'd be great.
Sure. Says it's, oh, there we go. So my name is Sam, and I'm wondering, for mentees who are struggling to know exactly where they want to go, what advice would you give to trying to figure that out?
And so the question, in case you didn't hear it, if I think I got it right, if a mentee is wondering, like, what do I want to do next? How do I land on this? Like, how did you put that together? That was an awkward situation. Maria shared my story briefly. I started meeting with a coach, and our first meeting was really awkward because she said, why are you here? And I said, I don't know. It's not very helpful. Like, but in reality, it's like, how do you land on that thing that you want help with, or how do you ask concretely for help? So I'll throw it out to anybody, like any advice on landing on what is that thing? What are you going to? How are you trying to get help?
Yeah, maybe I'll kick this one off. So for that particular question, that's the absolute type of question that would spur the 50 questions from me that would get us to an answer, right? Like, well, what do you like doing? And, are you technical, or do you aspire to leadership? What are the things that energize you in your job? I mean, I'll take up a lot of time asking all the questions, but you get the idea. It's, questions to ask, to pull that out of the individual, to get them to think. I can tell you that I was at the same place in my career at one point, and I had a mentor that asked me, what are you most proud of in your career? And so I listed off 5 things. Well, they're all things I built, right? And they said that back to me, and I thought, yeah, I like building things. Like, I like doing big projects and saying, hey, I did that, and that I had a sense of pride around it, which then fueled what I wanted to do. It gave me clarity on the types of jobs that I wanted to pursue, that gave me the greatest sense of accomplishment. So
I love that. And that you took advantage of a mentor's ability to be able to listen to you and repeat that back as a tool to be able to do it. Anybody want to add anything to what Todd said? How do you land on what you actually need from your mentor, or how to ask?
I guess I would say, like, I usually thought I've been in that kind of position before where I went to a mentor. What did I really want out of this mentorship? Didn't really know. Thought about like big picture things, like what I really wanted to do. And then my mentor actually helped me break things down, just like Todd said too. Like asking questions like, okay, so let's take this one step at a time. And I think really breaking it down to like smaller pieces and thinking about one thing versus like this huge thing. Like, I want to be a software engineer, but what steps do I need to take to become a software engineer was something that I focused on. Okay, so let's focus on the technical side right now. What do I really need to learn? What am I struggling with? And honestly, thinking about it like in smaller and smaller pieces truly helped me, and that way I was able to focus on like one thing at a time and then move on to the next thing. And that kind of like domino affected into like everything else, and I was able to kind of figure out what I really, really wanted out of the mentorship. So, hope that's helpful.
Yeah. Other questions from the audience?
Hello, my name's Taylor. So there were a lot of students and people just trying to get into the field here today. Do you have any advice for people as far as how to reach out to a mentor when they don't have somebody, say, above them in the workplace or something like that, to act as their mentor?
I love that question because both of our examples today are folks that were kind of in informal relationships within a company. What do you do if that's not your situation already? How else would you access a mentor? What would you use as your approach?
I think just going for it, right? I remember when I was actually an intern and I was kind of figuring out where I wanted to do, I emailed our CIO, David Black. I was like, hey, these are my thoughts. What am I thinking? Or like, I don't know what to do. And not thinking like a response. And like a half hour later, he sets up a meeting with me the next day. So I think people are willing to help you if you're putting yourself out there and asking their help. And like Todd said, if you ask them for help, they're going to want to help because that means you think that they're awesome or something like that, right? So, yeah, I think just going for it.
Yeah. Anybody else want to add anything? I mean, these are like, it's the most difficult thing. You have no former relationship with this person. How do you break in to be able to have that relationship with them?
Yeah, I think one good one is, let's say you meet someone that necessarily is not someone that you want to be mentored by, but you do admire them in many ways. Ask them, how did you get to where you're at? Like, did anyone help you along the way? Like, was there anyone that you like recommend that I connect with? Because that's how I found out about certain individuals within my career that I was able to connect with, just like that. Just having that conversation of like, you're really good at this. Like, how did you get there? Like, who did you talk to? Like, give me your secrets, basically. So like that is also another way that you can just kind of branch out and just have a feel for like who is out there, like who are these smart cookies that you really want to get to know. A lot of cookie references. Maybe I want a cookie, I don't know.
Yeah, and I would just add, you know people, right? And you may not, right, you may not, work at a place that, you both work at the same place. I have well, he's 15 now, but I have a son who's into video games, and so I play video games with him. And one of his buddies was playing a game with us at one point and mentioned, his dad was getting out of the Navy and, that kind of thing. And then that conversation, and his dad asked to connect with me on LinkedIn and then saw, wow, this guy's actually, in a corporation, right? And, so we ended up having a conversation about how to translate his skill set from the Navy into like corporate, so I just use as an example is it doesn't have to be a traditional, but if you see somebody or know somebody or a friend of a friend, again, it's that ask for help. People aren't gonna say no. If somebody came to you and said, hey, would you help me out? I'm trying to do this, and you know somebody, you're probably gonna say yes, right? And so, yeah, it doesn't have to be that traditional thing.
And I just want to, like Maria's example of a book of mentors, I think is a really great visual because sometimes you can set it up of like, oh gosh, I got to find somebody I can meet with weekly for the next year to be able to, like, don't count on that. I mean, count on when you reach out to somebody for help, if you reach out to David Black, yes, he set up a meeting with you the next day, which is fantastic. That's probably it. Like, use that moment to be able to ask, who else could I meet with? Use his network to be able to find the next person. Maybe you are an introduction to somebody's next chapter where it's like in that book, you are just a small footnote of, I met Todd through David, or whatever it happens to be. And I'd say for you too, as you consider, am I a mentor now? The answer is absolutely. The question is like, how proactively are you stepping into those spaces? Like, what are you doing to be able to not stop that connection but move it on? You may not be the expert that they need. What are you doing to be able to move it on to the next person? So we have time for 2 other questions. Audience members, what do you got for us? Got one in the back, Ishmael, on your side. Oh, and then Keegan got another one midway through on this side. All right, all the way in the back. Tell us your name and your question.
Yes. Hi, my name is Victoria, and I'm an early career starter in software engineering. And even though I'm kind of early on, I'm already starting to feel a drive to wanting to be a mentor in the future. And I'm just curious as to what is kind of that indicator where you're transitioning from mentee into mentor, and if there's any tips for that transition
I can take this one. So I believe you can be both at any time, all the time. I think there's a preconceived notion that you graduate from like mentee to mentor, or like you don't believe you can be a mentor because I'm not like ahead in my career enough. Having a mentor or multiple mentors throughout different stages of their career is super valuable because although, like, let's say you want like a super technical mentor with like 20 years of experience, like he can give you more like, hey, what to expect way down the road and how to get there. Having a mentor that's very early career can kind of give you a heads up of what to expect rather soon, right? And so actually Anusha had that situation with the Hackbright mentors. Like she had like director of tech from Target, like, you know, like 10 plus years. And I was like, hey, yeah, I just graduated from Hackbright too, like a year and a half ago. Hello, I'm your mentor. And like, you know, she found value in both because she had lots of questions for me, like, what's it like starting with Target? Like, what can I expect? What can I like, how can I boost myself up and stuff like that. So honestly, there is no like transitioning from one or the other. You can be both all the time, anytime.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would actually love to add to this because I'm here as a mentee, but I've also mentored, and I mentored recently as well, and to another person who's going through the Dream.org bootcamp, that also sponsored by Target. And I felt those things like, am I ready to be a mentor? Can I do this? But it was really just like taking charge, and I really wanted to kind of give back and use everything that I've learned during my time at Hackbright as well as Target and kind of pay it forward. And yeah, it's really like when you truly feel like you're ready or whenever works for you. You don't have to rush it, and you don't have to also wait until you're a VP or a director or whatever to become a mentor. So you add value, so just know that.
That's great. One final question back here.
Thank you. So, just like you up there, I changed careers as well, and pretty new to the tech world. What is that one thing, you know, that kind of jump-started your career that made you to say, aha, I'm there, you know, after going through that mindset that I don't know if it's going to work?
Yeah, this is a really good one. So like, how do you know when exactly like I'm there, I made my career switch work? I think it's different for everyone, and for me personally, it actually wasn't when I got into Target and I started my job as an engineer, because I felt like I was very much set up for that. I think for me personally, it was like I really, really worked for this. So I think it was when I got promoted to senior that I feel like that I really had to claw my way up to get. And then, you know, do you feel like a sense of great accomplishment once you're here? So let's say something did take a lot of work. Do you feel proud of yourself? And if you don't, maybe have that conversation with someone, right? Like, why am I unhappy still? Because that was me. Like, I graduated college in exercise science, and I was like, okay, I got my degree. Like, I made it. It wasn't the case, you know. I was still very unhappy. I didn't feel accomplished. Like, everyone was smiling in graduation. I was just like, I don't really want to be here right now. So yeah, like ask yourself these questions, like really listen to your mind and don't try to shove those feelings in your back pocket. Like it's really trying to tell you something. And so yeah, like if something feels like just work to you and that's all it is, it might be time to kind of do a little bit of self-reflecting.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I would say, I don't think there's one moment. I think there's hundreds across my career. And, you know, it was never, I mean, when I came out of the military or was coming out of the military, I got my degree in IT while I was in the military, and I wanted to get a job, and I got a job as a help desk guy. That was a moment. I was like, I made it, right? I don't have to get on a C-130 and fly overseas anymore, and, you know, I can support my family. And I did that for a few years, and I mastered it, and then I was given another opportunity, and I was like, I made it. Like, this is, I never had a picture in my head that I'd be where I'm at today. You know, it just kind of happened naturally over time. But there were these moments of, wow, I achieved something and I got rewarded for it. And then, you know, now I have a new challenge and I'm really challenged. I'm going to work really hard at that. And then you know, so I don't know that there was one moment. I don't know that I feel like I've made it yet. I feel like I'm still going. And it's a fun journey. But there's lots of little moments.
That's awesome. Can you join me in thanking Todd and Nick and Alicia and Anusha? I'm so grateful for them being willing to share their experience. And as good educators, you've heard content, you've seen demonstrations of how it's going to work, and now it's almost your turn to get started right away. And I'm really grateful. We had this time reserved at the end for networking. Networking is pre-mentoring. Networking is finding people who are a future mentor or finding people who could be a future mentor. These are all about being able to make future connections. I just wanted to let you know about 2 other upcoming events that MinTech is doing. One is called Jumpstart. If you are in a boot camp or you're trying to access your first role in tech, that event is specifically designed for you. That's coming up later this month. Check out the QR code for that. It's also on our website, mintech.org. And then the other one is Tech Talk. Think TED Talk for technologists. These are like 15-minute stories that technologists are telling. Our upcoming one is really about sustainability. So here's speakers at Land O'Lakes talk about how sustainability plays a role in what they're doing. So that's what's coming up with MinTech. Thank you again to our sponsors, Target, and to Thomson Reuters. Yeah. And before we break into networking, I want to give you this challenge. 3, 2, 1. 3, talk to at least 3 people you have never met before. They are not from your company. You did not come with them. You have never met them before. So talk to 3 people that you have never met before. Connect to at least 2 people on LinkedIn. Maybe one of them was a doozy and you just kind of leave it alone. That's okay. Connect with at least 2 of them on LinkedIn to be able to have a conversation later. And 1, find at least 1 person you can connect with beyond tonight. Maybe that's one of the people that you connected with on LinkedIn. You're like, hey, let's just hop on a 15-minute call. I had this other question that I wanted to ask you about something. I want to hear more about your experience. 3, 2, 1, take advantage of this networking time. Thank you all for being here. We're so glad. Thank you.